Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Utilities Committee meeting tonight. We're trying to start about 7:15. And Mr. Jason Cohen is going to take over tonight and explain some fees that he would like to have upgraded.
I'm filling in for Mr. Dumpy. Who are you filling in for, Mr. Clement?
Mr. Lawson.
Okay.
So our fees haven't changed in quite a while. We had a new water customer's fee, it was $50. That had been raised. Mr. Smith raised that where he went out. I don't believe we need to have that anymore. We can do completely away with the new water customer. If you live in a house and you move 2 streets over, if the water's already on in that house, here we are charging them another $50 to move. We're charging them for them moving from house to house, which isn't right. If they move somewhere and the water's off when they move, there's a terminal fee of $35. So that covers it. I think we can completely do away with the new water customer. There's no sense in having that.
We used to call that a deposit, but then we would never give the money
We
back.
don't do deposits. We don't do deposits anymore.
Yeah.
Taylor, we had that talk today. There's been a lot of instances where people pass away, they don't know where to send the money back to. There's just, we don't do deposits anymore.
Okay.
All the fees we want to change. Disconnect fee from 75 up to 100. Leak fee, leak check, sewer check from 10 to 25. Water shut off, turn on, 35.
And that one is like if somebody goes to like Florida for 6 months out of the year.
We'll get to
Nope.
that.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
get to that back down there. If
So-
somebody calls and they say, hey, we need our water shut off, we're fixing this in the house. We've got to be able to charge for the man hours, for the vehicle going down, for the gas.
Gotcha.
For the time, and we need to be able to pay for that. We can't just.
I understand. Okay.
After hours call outs from 150 to 175, that's anything. They used to do after hours call outs at 3:30, starting at 3:30. We don't do that now because I have somebody that works second shift, so. Our after hours call outs really don't go into effect until 10 o'clock at night, until 7 o'clock in the morning. But that's if we have to call somebody out, they come out, they're on overtime, they have a minimum 3 hours and they get called out. That's where it says restoration hours 8 to 3. This is a big one, and I know 2 of you have already looked at me funny on this. Street bond was $2,000. We want to bump it up to $6,000. Only for the simple fact that the majority of the problems in town with the streets are where they've been dug before, they haven't been fixed correctly, and then we go to patch pothole, they come right back, and salt gets down in them and everything else. If we do a $6,000 bond, a bond is refundable, it goes back to them once the road's fixed. I think we need to set a timeline afterwards, like I was telling Nancy before the meeting. I said 60 days, it could be 30 to 60, then we hold it to make sure the road's gonna hold. There's been a couple of repairs on Chestnut Street where they haven't held and they've sank. So I think we need to hold on to the street bond for a period of time to make sure that it's gonna hold before we give it back to them, because once we get back to them.
So
It's
who does that repair, the city, or does the homeowner bring somebody in?
The homeowner, or whoever digs up the road,
Whoever they hire.
whoever they hire, whatever the contractor they hire.
So is that contractor registered in the city?
But yeah, I mean, I don't deal with any of the permits because they gotta get permits and pay that. That's all done up here in the water office.
Yeah, contractors are supposed to be approved with the city, though, I think.
Right,
that's
that all goes through permits in the water office.
So are we talking concrete and or blacktop?
Yeah, whatever the road was, bring it back.
Right.
If it's brick.
So not every contractor is capable of doing those
You're right,
materials.
so they'll have to hire somebody to do it for them. At $2,000, so the stamp concrete in town, that stamp was custom made.
Right,
One person has that stamp.
Right.
There was a hole Columbia Gas had in that stamp concrete. They tried to get the guy to come and do it. He's too busy. He couldn't make it. They tried to rent the stamp, is what they told me. He wouldn't rent it to them. It's a custom stamp. They found one that was for rent in Columbus that was fairly close. I could take you and show it to you. You really wouldn't tell the difference except for the collar where it's a little bit brighter because it's not as old. But the bricks themselves are fairly close. You would never catch it just walking by or driving by. But with that being a custom stamp, that repair is very expensive because it's a one-of-a-kind stamp. $2,000, if I was a contractor and I came in town, and I had to fix a hole or a trench across one of those, I'd tell you, keep my $2,000, you fix it,
right.
because you're not gonna fix it for that. So if we raise that, it's gonna be more incentive for them. Hey, you know, this is only gonna cost us $3,000, they're holding $6,000. We're gonna fix this so we get our money back.
Yeah, because most contractors, their mobilization fees, 1,000 to 1,500, right? Just to show up.
Right. So we'd like to raise that to get it to where people wanna fix it instead of just saying, it's not worth the dust, you guys fix it.
Hmm.
We have 5 guys that do water, sewer, streets, everything. They pretty much do everything but police and fire. There's 5 guys. I've got one off, had surgery, and we've got a job posted right now. So right now, we're sitting at 5 guys. We don't have the manpower to go around and fix all these holes for contractors and stuff that don't want to fix it. Next on the list, sewer taps. Now, I know that seems really high. We haven't raised that in years. We are so far behind on that. And in all honesty, since I've been here 4.5 years, we may have done 4. So it's not like we do a whole lot of them, but the cost of all the materials that we use has skyrocketed. 3/4 inch water tap was $1,800. It's not wrote on the paper. I told 2 of them. I would like to make it 2,500 for the 3/4 inch on a short side service. And when I say
31.
it's 35 for a long side,
What, one,
3/4.
3,200 is what I got.
No, it's right here, 3,500.
Oh, I'm looking at, sorry, looking at the wrong graph.
So when I say short side for 2,500, the house, you got the road out front, the short side, the main is on the house side of the road. So we don't have to dig across the road. Long side, 3,500, because we have to replace the base in the road, the asphalt, all that. You can't do it. $1,800 does not cover that. Some roads that are in our water system, we have to directional drill. You can't get a directional drill to show up for less than $2,500. Just, they will not do it. It could be an alley. If we got a drill under it, it's $2,500. It could be Canal Street, they're gonna charge us. It's just, they got a minimum show up rate. So with the 1-inch water tap, I'd like to bump that up to 3,500 on the short side, 4,800 on the long side.
What was 48 is long side, what was the short side?
35.
35. Can you give us an example of what's 1-inch taps? Is that typically commercial or?
Some commercial, yeah.
Do we have houses on 1-inch taps?
A bunch of commercial taps we don't even do. They have to hire a contractor, and 1 inch is as big as we'll do.
Okay.
Let's say Burger King's a 2-inch tap. They have to hire a company, come in and tap it, we can check it out, make sure everything's good. But we don't tap anything in the water. We don't have the resources.
So we have residential that are 1 inch and also that.
Yeah, there are
Okay,
some
okay.
residential that are 1 inch. It is preference, I mean, 3/4 is plenty per house.
Okay.
Non-sufficient fund fee for invoice cloud from 15 to 35. Non-sufficient fee for return checks stays at 35. Test the water meters is from 160 up to 195. And when somebody wants their water meter tested, it's not on here, but if it comes back good, they pay for the test. If it comes back bad, we pay for the test. We have not had one yet come back bad.
Right. Because to have it tested, you actually have to remove that meter.
We have to remove
Put
that
another
put
meter.
Another meter in and send that meter away to have it
Okay.
tested.
So that would be billed to customer.
If it comes back good.
Are they invoiced separately for that? It does not go on their water bill.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all done up here in the water office.
Right.
I'm not sure how they broke it down.
Yeah, I don't think it can be added to the water bill.
So this goes back to your question earlier.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Temporary disconnection of service due to vacation, et cetera, a minimum rate charge per month, plus shut off turn on fee. These fees must be paid prior to services being restored. A temporary disconnection is requested and proper owner does not want to pay minimum. Removal of the meter cost is $350. We want to change it from $250 to $350. And reinstallation of meter was $350. We want to change that to $500.
So removal, $350. So $850 to pull and reinstall the meter?
Yep.
Okay.
So when people want to do that, that's what you guys do is actually remove it?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, if they just want to shut off, how it is in the beginning right there is how we do it now.
Okay.
They pay the shut off fee,
Mhm.
and they still pay a minimum because the meter is still there.
Yeah, the removal, okay.
And last but not least, there's a lot of landlords in town that might not like this. All rentals need to stay in the property owner's name instead of the individual. Because with this goes back to what we talked about in the last meeting, with water being shut off and turned off, and so you get bills run way up, and it's not getting paid. When the tenant moves, it's still staying with the landlord. So the landlord's gonna end up eventually paying it anyway. It's better off to head it off this way because this will help with some of the people that don't like to pay. If their rent, if you have a place for rent, say $600, make it $700, but that includes the trash, the sewer, and the water. That covers them in their bill. However, the landlord wants to go about it. It will cut back on our large unpaid bills that we have.
It says here that you tried it before. What happened?
No, they didn't try it. They tried to take it through council.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
through council.
Yes.
Okay,
This
gotcha.
is the city of Athens does it this way. Any rentals in Athens stay
Yeah.
in the property.
So I'm a property owner that doesn't put it in my name. I require my tenants to put it in their name. I was one of those that felt the choice should be on the property owner. Personally, I've had it both ways though, where I'm responsible for the water and not. Typically, when my tenants have been responsible for their own usage, they tend to be more conserving, right, of the use, because they're cognizant of how much water they're actually using. I know, Mr. Dumpy, he and I talked about it before because he pays for the water and they pay him he doesn't seem to have any issues with it necessarily. If a tenant doesn't pay their water bill, they can be shut off and they're responsible for the turn on fees. I can't shut off the water though if a tenant is in there and they're not paying me their portion of the water.
Right.
And currently, it's my knowledge, I'd have to talk to my attorney on it, but currently in Athens County, I haven't, regardless of what my lease says and how stringent my lease is. So I've had issues in the past, where I've had tenants, not complying with the lease, not, bringing in additional people or animals or doing illegal activities. Thankfully, with Mr. Fitch was here, Chief Fitch was here, I was able to rectify some of those issues, but I cannot evict for any of those reasons, even though they're violating my lease. The only thing I've ever been able to evict for in Athens County is non-payment of rent. So if I'm able to include in my lease agreement that they pay me their, whatever the said bill is of water, and if I can make that as part of their lease payment, and I have the ability to evict them, I'm okay with it. I don't, but again, though, it's, I've just had that run-in with individuals where they're just not very, they're not responsible with the utilities. That's why like AEP and Columbia Gas, if they've got it in their name, they tend to be a little bit more, I think, cognizant of the actual use. Oh,
Well,
don't keep it at 80 degrees because that's too high of a bill. So we turn the heat down in the wintertime and we cover up and we use more clothes, right? I mean,
well, if you have a tenant that puts a garden in and they're running up way over the.
or a swimming pool.
Or a retaliatory action against the landlord. They have a dispute and they just leave the water on and let it run for.
Which actually has happened to landlords, I've heard. I mean,
Yeah, that's why I bring it
That's
up.
where you put it in the lease though. You make the homeowners, because one thing you gotta understand is right now we're talking about the city, not.
I agree. Right.
So
But
we're
it's-
looking out for the city right now.
Well, but it's
looking out
still
for
a
the city-
utility though.
It is still utility, but looking out for the city, now it's like, well, I'm not gonna deal with this, we'll let the city deal with it, and that's not how we should be looking at it at the moment. It's how do we keep the city from having all these super huge unpaid bills?
Well, but we've also given legislation in the past, council has, to the city to be able to recoup some of those. Whether or not we've actually done it or not is, partially on the city then. But here's the thing, as a property owner, I've paid my fair share of large water bills that I've been left with. After COVID, I got stuck with some major water bills because there was a moratorium on shutting off any utilities. These people tore up my properties and then they also left me with $1,500 water bills. And when you're paying, $5,000 or $6,000 in water bills as a property owner, because that's how the ordinance is written in there, because it doesn't follow them. They move just down the road, but the water bill doesn't follow it.
Higher advice,
So,
it has to stay with the department.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a higher advice, that's not just something we do here, that's every.
but I've paid my fair share of that though. I mean, I'm always, trying to pay my bills with the city and not leave the city in the lurch by any means, but there has to be some level of accountability on tenants as well on the usage that they have.
Maybe property owners need to speak to their attorney to find out how they can go about it, because if somebody leaves you with a $1,500 water bill, if it was in your name, it would have never got to $1,500 to where it was coming at one time.
True, but if they weren't paying their bills then, what's to say they're gonna be
That's why-
paying mine,
that's
which
why
then
I'm
I'm spending
saying-
more attorney
that's-
fees to
That's
be
why
able
I'm
to sue
saying
them.
each property owner needs to reach out to their attorney and find out how they can write their leases to cover that.
Yeah, and if Athens is already doing it, then I'm sure landlords in Athens probably have options.
They-
At the end of the day, I'm gonna follow the law, so whatever the city as a whole does as far as
Right.
council, I'm gonna follow along with it.
They've been doing it in Athens for years.
Yeah.
Trust me, Athens has been doing a lot of things for years, and Athens isn't better off because of everything they've been doing
Not
for
saying
years,
they're
so
better
I'm just saying.
I'm looking at it another way to try to make things better.
I don't disagree. I
Not,
mean,
Minimize overhead.
yes, because my thing is looking out for the city, not the landlords that have their own attorneys to turn to and find out how the wording should be in their leases. That's not my job.
right,
My job is to make sure that everything with the city is efficient. And when we have large overhead because these unpaid bills, that's not being efficient.
I'm not disagreeing, but I'm gonna say that every large water bill I'm stuck with, that's taken out of my pocket from renovating
I agree.
homes that I'm currently renovating, by the way, even though I'm told that I'm not by some. And I've got text messages and emails by two of people that have both said that they haven't said, I'm a slumlord, but they have.
I agree with you.
So-
I'm not taking that
Right.
from you, not at all.
But I'm just saying, like, that takes away from money that could be in there, so I'm gonna be opposed to it, but then again, I was for it, for voting for things like the code enforcement or the rental registration fee, and where has that gotten us? That's to me just money I'm spending, and I'm not getting any value as a property owner. If I look back to when we first started that, I'm spending a lot of money to get an envelope of certificates. We have people asking if, do we have a list of all these people? Yes, I paid my certificates, I have them, I can show them to you, but I paid that money and I'm not I don't feel like I'm getting the value out of it. I don't feel like it's benefiting me. I'm paying a fee, and fees, and I said it back then when we started talking about it, fees never go away. Fees and costs never go down, right? These fees are only going up. So the cost of all this stuff just keeps going up, and that's more money coming out of people that, want to develop, in this community.
Cost of everything's going up.
Trust me.
Go back and buy some of my brass books.
Yeah,
I mean, and then when you're told, well, it's gonna be 22 weeks before we can get that to you.
I mean, I feel that pain. I mean, building supplies are all, still expensive, so. But, I mean, I'm okay with, whatever the law is, I'm gonna follow it, but at the end of the day, if I'm not getting value out of it, it is what it is, so. But I appreciate it. I'll have my attorney look at my situation, because, but ultimately, I think that majority of people, whether they're homeowners or renters, take more care and better pride and more responsibility if they are responsible for their own utilities, their own, maintaining. I think most people take better care of it. So that's my personal opinion. If you continue to give them services, they take advantage of that. They take, they
I agree
exploit
to an
it.
extent.
They exploit it.
I agree to an
But
extent.
like Mr. Cohen said, if it is in the landlord's name and these bills start coming in, how much money it is costing. So that's when you have to do something with your tenant.
That's why I'm saying you need the landlords need to speak to an attorney, find out how they're doing it in Athens and how it's been going down there. I mean, when Brian Duper worked here, we talked about it, and that's how every landlord in Athens is.
Yeah, but Athens is also, it's a different market. We compare everything to Athens, but it's
I'm
completely
comparing
different.
it to Athens because there's nothing else around
Bless you.
that's like Nelsonville. Bless you.
Bless you.
In Athens, there's a lot more money than there is in Nelsonville. So the tenants are different.
Totally different. And majority of them are not resident, like most of them are students versus, so most of those people renting in Athens are, they're students, and they're paying a large amount for rent considerably more than here.
Landlords need to speak with their attorneys and say, hey, if I've got somebody in this house and they're not paying, is this the way to evict them? Because then, in turn, like we talked about in the last meeting, about the cars on the side of the road and everything else, in turn, you're gonna start being part of the solution instead of part of the problem.
Yeah, well, first of all, I take a little bit of offense to that because it makes it sound like I'm part of the problem.
I'm not talking just you.
But I'm just saying, here's the reality though, too. okay?
Gentlemen, hold on just
No,
one second. Hold
seriously.
on just 1 second, please.
Okay, I have a point to make about
It's
that.
coming across as a personal issue, and this we do not want at this committee meeting right now.
Well, it has been made personal with property owners, so, and I think your other committee member who's not here tonight would feel that way as well. But I will tell you though, this about like the issue with the water usage, right? Yeah, okay, so you put it on the property owner, fine. But then the property owner says, hey, this is how are there's two people here and you're using $150 a month in water. That can't be. If I've checked it, there's no water leakage, anything. They're just having a high usage. Why are they high usage? You go to them, you talk to them about it, but it's no different for a landlord that is dealing with an issue. I had a tenant with a lot of cars, right? People complained about it here. If they're parked on the street, I can't enforce it. If the registration is paid and they're not there with flat tires or whatever, what am I gonna, I can say, hey, come on, you got too many vehicles. I have no control over how many vehicles they own,
Right.
if they're parked legally, and if they're registered and have insurance, et cetera. I can't do anything about it, right? I can say, hey, your porch is a mess. Would you please clean up? But it doesn't mean that they're going to do it necessarily and that they're going to necessarily say, okay, yeah, I'm going to clean it up. It doesn't matter if I get complaints about it. It doesn't matter, if they're not going to clean up their porch or pick up after their stuff. I mean, I'm one that gets complained on often, from a few people about lumber put in an alleyway on a back porch neatly stacked, but nobody talks about houses that have trash spread all around it that aren't mine, that are, I'm just saying it's hard to really lean on the tenant all the time. And, you cannot necessarily get them to conform, right? We're property owners. We're the ones that conform because we're the ones that are obviously following the rules and the laws, but doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily comply with, that's in my opinion, where we talked about that in code even is like, why is the property owner always being cited on some of this stuff? Why isn't the tenant being cited?
Are you finished, sir?
Sure. I mean, obviously I'm only one opinion, but evidently carries no weight. So.
Well, we all know how it's gonna end up, so it's obvious. Do you have anything to say, sir?
Yeah, I do have a question, for Jason. These fees, are they applied to, not all these fees are applied to customers outside the city, correct? Such as, we have the Boca water system, so we're not charging them for a street bond.
No, we don't.
Yeah, so I think if we're gonna bring,
So that's
changes.
why we want to raise the prices of the tap fees, because if we dig up a road in Bookville, we have to fix what we done.
yeah,
Why is that book included in our?
because
We don't
have
street fees.
Yeah.
When it comes to Bookville's a village, they're in a village, they have a mayor. We can't charge a street fee for Bookville.
But we're providing them the water.
We provide them water, but like say with a sewer. So with a sewer, the customer is responsible for the lateral clear to the main. So if somebody in Bookville is having some lateral work done on their sewer, and they have to dig out in the road, that has nothing to do with us, that's contractor coming in.
right.
The only thing that we would do is the water taps. And that's why we raise the prices, to be able to cover the cost of repairing roads also.
Yeah, so where I'm going with this, if we bring forward an ordinance or changes, that needs to be designated in that.
Yeah.
What applies to
Street
Bookville.
bond is not Bookville.
Right, and if we're looking at future annexation, we need to also have that in mind when we bring the ordinance forward.
Street bond is not the township, like, we have water out on Kimberly Road.
Exactly.
Not in Nelsonville.
Right.
That's what really brought all this up, that there was an issue out there, and there's some trailers that had one service going and it feeds multiple trailers, 3 of them. And there was a leak, pretty bad leak. They didn't know where it was leaking at, so they wanted to put services in for each one. So they would have been adding 2 more. Well, we can't go out and dig across Kimberly Road, and the main was on the opposite side of the road, so it was alongside. So we'd have directional board. Our tap fees wouldn't even cover the drill showing up, let alone any of the parts we use, the manpower, the vehicles, fuel, the equipment. It covers nothing. We'd actually had to pay more on top of the tap fee just to get the directional drill.
Would we not have in-town and out-of-town rates for these two?
It's always been the same for the rates. If we gotta dig and book till the asphalt's gonna cost same as it does in Nelsonville.
Yeah, but if we're taking our vehicles further. Just asking. But we know how this is gonna go, I guess, so we'll leave it down.
I mean, we do, you can make an in-town, out-of-town rate for it. It's just, that's the way it's always been the same.
So that, as instance, the after hours call out is the same for all customers.
There's a 3-hour minimum if somebody gets called out.
3-hour minimum?
A 3-hour minimum. if
Okay,
anybody
it
gets
it
called
doesn't
out.
say that here.
Well, because our guys in their contract, it's a
Yeah.
3-hour minimum.
Okay,
So 175 covers their wages.
yeah, but that's what it should state when the ordinance finally, if it comes to full council, it needs to state after hours call out $175, 3-hour minimum. Otherwise, it's, people are gonna look at it and go, oh, it's 175 when actually
175 is the total cost.
for the 3 hours.
An after hours call out, if somebody calls and they have a leak in their basement and need the water shut off, and it's after hours, it's $175.
Okay, and that covers
And that covers
the 3-hour call out.
a 3-hour call out.
Okay.
Anything else, gentlemen? Mr. Taylor, sir?
So the next step is to move this to the law director to put together an ordinance with the change of
That would be my suggestion.
fee rates. No, I'm fine with moving this on.
Okay. With that, I will close this meeting at 7:47.